Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Sometimes silence can do what 1,000 words, endless arguments, and countless tears could never achieve. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is the quiet storm that shakes pride, the invisible force that breaks ego, and the undeniable truth that makes him realize your worth like never before. Today, I will show you why. After silence, 100% guaranteed, he will return and beg to be with you. Silence. It may seem small, it may feel empty, but it holds a power that words can never carry. When you decide to stop explaining, stop justifying, stop begging for attention, something shifts. Suddenly the energy changes. Suddenly the balance changes. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is the loudest declaration of self-respect. Because when you stop speaking, when you stop trying to convince him of your worth, you are reminding him, without saying a single word, that you are not a woman to be taken for granted. Men often expect constant communication. They expect texts, calls, questions, and the sound of your voice always reaching out to them. But the moment that silence enters, the moment that phone no longer lights up with your name, the moment the questions stop coming, his comfort begins to shake. He starts to wonder, why is she quiet? Where is her attention now? Who is she giving her energy to? And that wondering, that uncertainty, becomes a storm inside his mind, because silence forces him to listen, not to your words, but to his own thoughts. It forces him to feel the absence that your presence used to fill, and absence. Absence is louder than any sentence you could ever speak. When you remain silent, you remove yourself from arguments, from emotional battles, from the endless back and forth. And instead of chasing him with explanations, you let the silence chase him with questions. And the truth is, questions in his mind will always be more powerful than answers from your mouth. Silence puts you back in control. It tells him, I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to beg. I don't need to talk just to be heard. It shows him strength. It shows him dignity. And above all, it shows him that your love, your time, and your energy are not something he can toy with. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the presence of power. It's the invisible hand that shifts the balance of the relationship. It makes him realize that for the first time he cannot predict you, he cannot control you, and he cannot measure your next move. And when a man loses that sense of control, when he feels that silence pressing against him, that's when panic sets in. Absence. It's strange, isn't it? When you're always there, when you're always available, when you're always answering every message and showing up at every call, it feels normal to him. It feels expected. It feels guaranteed. But the moment you step back, the moment you create distance, the moment you choose absence instead of presence, something extraordinary happens. Value is born. Think about it. Even the most precious diamond loses its shine if it's constantly in someone's hand. The heart grows numb to what it sees every single day, but remove it, hide it, take it away for just a moment, and suddenly that diamond becomes priceless again. That's exactly what happens when you pull away. Your absence is not emptiness. Your absence is a mirror. It reflects back to him just how much of his life you filled. It reminds him of the laughter that now feels missing, the comfort that now feels cold. The attention that no one else gives quite the same way. Every second of silence becomes a second of realization. Every day without you becomes a day he feels something missing inside himself. And here's the truth most people forget. A man doesn't always recognize value when it's in front of him every day. But the second it disappears, the second he reaches for it and it's no longer there, that's when his mind starts racing, that's when his heart starts aching. Absence makes your presence sacred. It makes him remember the little things he ignored. It makes him compare every woman he sees to the standard you set. And no matter how far he runs, absence will follow him like a shadow, whispering, you had her, you lost her, you need her back. That emptiness doesn't let him rest. It keeps him awake at night, scrolling through old pictures, replaying memories, wondering why he let you slip away. And with every passing day, the value of your presence multiplies. Because absence is not nothing. It is the most powerful reminder of everything. And when he feels that void, when he realizes that your absence has made his world dull and colorless, that's when his pride begins to crack. That's when his ego begins to fall. And that's when the thought starts to grow inside him. I have to go back. I need her. I can't live without her. Words. They can be sweet. They can be sharp. They can be heavy. But here's the truth. Words can lie. Words can be twisted. Words can be ignored. Yet energy cannot be hidden. It cannot be denied. And it cannot be forgotten. When you go silent, when you stop explaining, your words disappear, but your energy remains. And that energy, strong, calm, and unshaken, travels farther than any sentence ever could. He feels it. He feels it in the unanswered text. He feels it in the quietness of your absence. He feels it when he scrolls through his phone expecting you to reach out and finds nothing. That energy screams louder than any paragraph you could ever write. Because energy speaks the truth. If your words say, I'm moving on, but your energy is still clinging, he will know. If your words say, I don't care, but your energy is restless and desperate, he will feel it. But when your energy aligns with your silence, when it radiates calmness, confidence, and self-control, it shakes him to his core. Your energy is your aura, your silent message, your invisible presence. It tells him things you don't have to say. It tells him, I am fine without you. I am strong without you. I am not waiting for you. And that vibration, that shift, hits him in ways he cannot block out. Because here's the secret. Men may ignore words, but they cannot escape energy. He might deny your silence with his mouth, but in his chest, in his gut, he feels the weight of it. Energy moves differently. It lingers when he's alone. It hums in his mind when he tries to distract himself. It creates a pressure that only grows stronger with time, and the longer you remain silent, the stronger that energy grows. It becomes a wave. It becomes a presence. It becomes the loudest reminder that you are not chasing him anymore. And that silence, that energy, unsettles him. He starts to sense something has shifted. Something he cannot fully explain. Something that makes him uneasy. Because for the first time, your energy is no longer feeding his comfort. It is challenging it. And whether he admits it or not, deep down, he begins to feel a pull, a magnetic force drawing him back, a whisper that grows louder with every passing day. Human nature is simple. What is known becomes ordinary, and what is unknown becomes irresistible. When you are always available, always explaining, always updating him about your life, you remove the mystery. He knew where you were. He knew what you were doing. He knew what you were feeling, and slowly, without realizing it, that familiarity dulled his curiosity. But the moment you chose silence, the moment you stepped back and wrapped yourself in mystery, something changed. Suddenly, he didn't know what you were thinking. He didn't know what you were feeling. He didn't know who was capturing your attention now. That uncertainty, that unspoken question mark, it plants itself in his mind and refuses to leave. Mystery is oxygen to desire. It fuels imagination. It makes him wonder, and the more he wonders, the more he obsesses, because the mind hates empty spaces. It always tries to fill them, and when he doesn't have your words to rely on, he starts filling in the silence with his own thoughts. Is she happy without me? Is she talking to someone else? Did she move on? Every unanswered question becomes a spark. Every missing detail becomes fuel. He begins to crave what he cannot see, what he cannot hear, what he cannot touch. Your silence doesn't just protect your peace, it turns you into a mystery again. And nothing awakens a man's desire faster than mystery. Because desire is born in the unknown. Think about it. A locked door is always more interesting than an open one. A story half old is always more captivating than one explained in full. That is what your silence does. It locks the door. It leaves the story unfinished. It makes him desperate to know the next chapter. And the more he tries to guess, the more he realizes he no longer has access to your world. That realization burns. It eats at his pride. It shakes his confidence, because he used to know everything, and now he knows nothing. That void, that mystery, makes him want you more than ever before. He starts to search for signs, to replay your last words, to overanalyze your last look, your last text, your last moment together. Mystery makes him chase answers. And the longer he goes without finding them, the stronger his hunger grows. And hunger, that's the foundation of desire. That's the pull that keeps him restless. That's the fire that pushes him closer and closer to breaking down, closer to returning, closer to begging for what once seemed so certain. Respect is not something you demand with words. It's something you earn with actions. And silence, when used with strength, is one of the greatest demonstrations of self-respect. Because when you choose not to argue, not to beg, not to chase, you are silently declaring, I know my worth. I know my value. I don't need to lower myself to prove it. When you show respect for yourself, others have no choice but to adjust. A man may not realize it at first. He may think your silence is a game, a phase, or an attempt to gain attention. But when your silence continues, when your actions remain consistent, he begins to feel it. He begins to see that this is not weakness, it is strength. It is dignity. It is self-respect in its purest form. And here's the truth. Respect is magnetic. When you respect yourself enough to walk away quietly, you force him to respect you more, because people value what values itself. Think of it this way: if you treat yourself like you are priceless, others are forced to treat you as priceless too. But if you cheapen yourself, if you throw your energy at someone who ignores it, you send the message that your worth is low. Silence reverses that. Silence raises your value. Silence demands his attention without asking for it. Respect is not given to the loudest voice. It is given to the one who doesn't need to shout. And when you show that you can step back, that you can stay silent, that you can keep your peace without breaking down, he sees something powerful. He sees someone he cannot easily control, someone he cannot simply play with, someone who refuses to compromise their dignity for temporary comfort. That kind of strength shakes him. It makes him realize that he has underestimated you. It makes him regret the times he thought you would always be there no matter how he treated you. Because now your silence is teaching him a lesson. If he doesn't respect you, he will lose you. And once that thought sinks in, once he truly understands that your respect for yourself is greater than your desire for him, something shifts inside him. He begins to mirror that respect back to you. He starts to see you differently. He starts to feel that fear. The fear of losing a woman who respects herself so much that she doesn't need him to complete her. And that fear, mixed with admiration, pushes him to revalue everything you brought into his life. Because respect is the foundation of love. Without respect, love becomes weak. But when respect is restored, when he sees that you respect yourself enough to stay silent and walk with dignity, that's when his own respect returns stronger, and with it, the desire to fight for you, to chase you, to prove himself worthy again. It's a truth as old as time. Men are hunters by nature. They crave challenge, they crave pursuit, they crave the thrill of chasing something that isn't easily within their grasp. The moment something feels guaranteed, the moment it feels permanent, the desire begins to fade. But when there's distance, when there's mystery, when there's a hint that he no longer fully has you, that's when the chase begins again. Think about it. When you were always available, when you gave endless reassurance, when you never let him wonder where you stood, he stopped chasing. Not because you weren't valuable, but because you were already his. He didn't have to try. He didn't have to earn. He didn't have to fight. And what comes too easily often loses its shine. But silence changes everything. Silence creates space. Silence reminds him that you are no longer his to command, no longer his to assume, no longer his to take for granted. And when a man feels he's losing grip, when he feels he no longer fully has what once felt certain, instinct kicks in. He wants to reclaim it. He wants to prove himself. He wants to chase again. The male mind is wired this way. What is secure feels safe, but what is slipping away feels irresistible. It's why so many men only realize what they had when it's already walking out of their life. Your silence gives him that experience. It makes him feel the distance. It makes him fear that someone else might step into the space he once occupied. And fear, mixed with desire, is the strongest motivator of all. When you withhold your words, your presence, your attention, he doesn't just miss you. He begins to crave the pursuit. He begins to wonder what he must do to win you back. And suddenly, the roles shift. The one who was once being chased becomes the one being chased again, the prize, the reward, the treasure he can't stop thinking about. And here's the beauty of it: men value what they fight for, they respect what they earn. They cherish what doesn't come easily. Your silence forces him to return to that natural state of pursuit. It makes him question, how do I get her back? How do I prove myself again? How do I make her choose me once more? And the more he questions, the stronger the desire grows. Because the chase is not just about wanting you. It's about proving to himself that he can have you again. And that fire, that hunger, that pursuit, it only gets stronger the longer you remain just out of reach. The longer you show him he cannot fully have you unless he comes back with humility, effort, and the willingness to beg for the place he once took for granted. Emotions are powerful. They are fire, capable of warming, but also capable of burning, and in relationships, emotions can cloud the mind. When the words are constant, when arguments pile up, when explanations turn into endless circles, emotions spiral. They become heavy, chaotic, overwhelming. In that storm, no clarity exists, but silence. Silence is the reset button. When you step back, when you stop arguing, when you stop explaining yourself, silence brings stillness. It removes the noise, it cuts through the confusion, and it allows space for emotions to breathe. In silence, the anger fades. In silence, the pride softens. In silence, the fog begins to lift. And this is where the shift begins. Because silence doesn't only calm you, it calms him. At first, he may feel relieved by your quietness, thinking he has won, thinking the conflict is over. But as the days pass, that silence begins to work differently. It clears away the surface-level frustrations, the arguments, the ego battles. And underneath, the truth of his emotions begins to reappear. Suddenly, he isn't remembering the fights. He isn't replaying the sharp words. He isn't holding onto the heat of the last argument. Instead, the silence allows the good memories to resurface. The laughter, the moments of comfort, the way your presence once felt like home. And the longer the silence lasts, the stronger those memories become. Because silence resets the heart. It doesn't erase, it refocuses. It brings him back to the essence of what you meant in his life, stripped of the noise, stripped of the conflict, stripped of the pride. And that realization is heavy. It stirs regret. It stirs longing. It makes him wonder why he allowed temporary emotions to destroy something lasting. And here's the secret. The human heart always seeks comfort after chaos. When the noise is gone, it looks for the place it once felt safe. And your silence creates the exact conditions for that recognition to bloom. He begins to miss not only you, but the peace you brought, the grounding you gave, the warmth that only your presence carried. It's like a reset switch in his mind. At first he feels free, but soon he feels empty, At first, he enjoys the quiet, but soon the quiet becomes unbearable, and in that space, in that silence, his emotions reset from anger to longing, from pride to regret, from distance to desire. And when that reset completes, when he realizes that his love for you never truly left, but was only buried under noise, the pull becomes too strong to ignore. The silence that once felt like relief now feels like punishment, and he begins to think of only one thing: breaking it, reaching out, returning, because he can no longer bear the emptiness that silence has left behind. Patience. It is not just waiting. It is not passive. It is not weakness. True patience is discipline. It is control. It is quiet power in motion. And when you combine patience with silence, it becomes a force he cannot escape. At first, silence feels like nothing. A day passes, 2 days, maybe a week, and he may think, she will break, she will come back, she cannot stay quiet forever. But this is where patience enters, because every day you remain still, every day you resist the urge to reach out, every day you let silence continue, your strength multiplies. Patience is a weapon most never master. People want results now, they want answers now, they want change instantly. But the one who waits, the one who controls time instead of being controlled by it, always wins. Because patience amplifies the effect of silence. What feels small in the beginning grows enormous over time. Think of a seed. When you plant it in the soil, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you wait, and still the surface looks empty. But underground, roots are spreading. Growth is happening where the eye cannot see. And one day, without warning, that seed breaks through the surface into something undeniable. That is what patience does with silence. It grows roots deep inside his mind. You may not see it at first, but slowly, surely it consumes him. Every passing day of your silence stretches the gap in his heart. At first, he might try to distract himself. He might ignore the emptiness. But as time passes, distractions fade, pride weakens, the mask falls, and patience ensures that when the moment comes, it hits harder, deeper, and with more urgency than if you had rushed. Because patience makes silence undeniable. If you had broken the silence too soon, he might have thought you were bluffing. He might have thought your strength was temporary. But the longer you hold, the more he realizes this is real. This is not a trick. This is not a game. This is power. This is resolve. And here is the beauty of patience. It creates contrast. The longer he waits to hear from you, the more valuable your presence becomes. The more days pass without your voice, the more priceless the memory of it becomes. Each moment of waiting intensifies his longing until it becomes unbearable. Patience is not the absence of action. It is the highest form of action, because while you are still, he is moving. While you are calm, he is restless. While you wait in strength, he grows weaker by the day. And soon patience turns the tables. He goes from being the one who thought he held control to the one who cannot endure another second of silence. And when that moment arrives, when patience has done its work, he will no longer approach you with arrogance or pride. He will approach you humbled, softened, desperate, because patience has stretched the silence so far that he can no longer bear it. And the only thing left for him to do is return, beg, and surrender to the very presence he once overlooked. Presence. It is not just about being in the same room. It is not just about the sound of your voice or the sight of your face. Presence is energy. Presence is comfort. Presence is the invisible warmth that fills the air when you enter a space. And when that presence is gone, when the silence stretches long enough, it begins to ache in ways words cannot describe. At first, he may feel fine. He may even feel free, convincing himself that life is easier without the constant connection, without the calls, without the conversations. But slowly, quietly, the truth begins to creep in. The silence becomes louder. The absence becomes heavier, and his mind begins to drift. Back to the moments he once overlooked, back to the details he once took for granted. He begins to remember the way you laughed at things no one else found funny, the way your voice softened his roughest days, the way your presence changed the energy of a room without effort. These things cannot be replaced. These things cannot be duplicated. And when silence removes them, when absence denies him that presence, it creates a void he cannot escape. He starts to feel it in the smallest ways. When something good happens and he instinctively wants to share it with you, but you're not there. When something bad happens and his heart wants to reach for your comfort, but the line stays silent, even in his moments of distraction, out with friends, scrolling through his phone, busy with work. The thought of you slips in uninvited, reminding him of what he lost. And the longer your presence is missing, the more unbearable it becomes, because presence is not just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's the way you made him feel safe, seen, understood, even without words. And when that presence is gone, no one else can fill the space. Others may try, but it never feels the same, because your presence was unique, and silence has now made him painfully aware of that truth. This is the moment when missing turns into longing, when absence turns into ache, when silence becomes a mirror, forcing him to see how empty life feels without you. And the irony is powerful. He didn't notice your presence fully when it was there every day, but now, in silence, it follows him everywhere. It lingers in his memory. It haunts his quiet moments. It whispers to him at night when he tries to sleep. And no matter how much he tries to push it away, no matter how much he tries to cover it with distractions, your presence has become more powerful in its absence than it ever was in its availability. And soon, that ache becomes too strong, that missing becomes too heavy, that longing grows so deep it begins to push him toward action. Because the truth is, a man can ignore many things, but he cannot ignore the ache of missing a presence that once made his world feel alive. And the more he misses you, the more desperate he becomes to feel that presence again. At first, silence unsettles him, then it makes him curious, but with time, silence begins to do something deeper. It plants the seed of guilt. And guilt is a powerful force because it eats away at pride, it erodes arrogance, and it whispers the truth in moments when no one else is speaking. In the beginning, he may brush it off. He may tell himself that your silence means nothing, that he's fine without your presence. But as days turn into weeks, and that silence holds steady, his mind begins to replay everything. Every word he spoke in anger, every moment he dismissed you, every time he made you feel small, every time he assumed you would never leave. That's the cruel nature of guilt. It does not strike immediately. It sneaks in slowly, like a shadow. It starts in the quietest hours, when distractions are gone, when the room is still, and when the weight of memory grows heavier than the comfort of excuses. And the silence gives guilt its stage, because when you are not there to argue, when you are not there to remind him of what he did, his own conscience takes over, and the conscience is relentless. It doesn't forget. It doesn't let go. It repeats the truth until it becomes unbearable. He starts to see the pattern. He starts to remember your patience, your loyalty, your effort, and he begins to realize how carelessly he handled it. The guilt begins to whisper, you pushed her away, you ignored her worth, you are the reason she is gone. And no matter how he tries to silence that voice, it only grows louder with every passing day of your silence. Guilt is powerful because it cannot be argued with. He cannot fight it the way he fought with you. He cannot shout it down. He cannot escape it with excuses. It is his own voice, his own heart, his own mind turning against him. And slowly, guilt becomes the weight he carries everywhere he goes. When he sees something that reminds him of you, guilt strikes. When he scrolls through his phone and sees your name missing, guilt strikes. When he lies in bed at night, replaying the last conversation you had, guilt strikes harder. And the longer he goes without hearing your voice, the heavier that guilt becomes. And here's the truth: guilt transforms a man. Pride may hold him back for a while, ego may silence him for a moment, but guilt weakens them both. Guilt turns his confidence into shame. It turns his silence into suffering. It makes him realize, deep down, that he has wronged the one person who gave him what no one else could. And the more guilt grows, the more he knows there is only one way to silence it. He must come back. He must apologize. He must beg for forgiveness, not because you asked for it, but because the weight of his own guilt is crushing him, and the only relief he can find is in your acceptance once again. Value. It is often invisible when it is constant. When someone is always there, always giving, always available, the human mind begins to normalize it. What is priceless starts to feel ordinary. What is rare begins to feel common. But silence breaks that illusion. Silence removes your light from his world, and only then does he realize how dark it feels without you. Your value was always there. It was in the way you listened when no one else cared. It was in the way you supported him when the world felt heavy on his shoulders. It was in the little details, the reminders, the encouragement, the warmth, the care, that no one else could provide in the same way, but he didn't see it clearly while it was in front of him every day. Familiarity blinded him, pride muted him, ego made him think he could always have it. Then came the silence, no more late, night calls, no more thoughtful words, no more presence that filled the emptiness he didn't even know existed. Suddenly, he's left with nothing but the echo of what you once gave freely, and in that emptiness your value begins to shine brighter than ever before, because value is always recognized in absence. It is when the comfort is taken away that the soul starts to crave it again. It is when the light is gone that the eyes begin to miss it. It is when the treasure is lost that the heart finally realizes what it held. Your silence forces this recognition. It puts your worth under a spotlight he cannot ignore. And every time he compares his life with and without you, the contrast becomes undeniable. With you, there was balance, there was care, there was love that grounded him. Without you, there is silence, emptiness, and regret. That comparison magnifies your value. It turns the ordinary into extraordinary. It makes him realize that what he thought was common was, in truth, rare. And here is the secret. Once a man truly sees your value, once silence strips away the noise and shows him the reality, that image burns into his mind. He cannot unsee it. He cannot undo it. He cannot escape it. Everywhere he looks, he finds reminders of what he lost. Every interaction feels shallow compared to yours. Every voice feels empty compared to your words. Your value begins to shine so brightly in his memory that it blinds him to everyone else. It becomes the standard by which he measures all others, and no one comes close. And the longer he lives without you, the more undeniable that truth becomes. That you were never ordinary. You were the rarest part of his life. You were the blessing he treated casually. You were the light he thought would never dim. And when that realization fully sinks in, when your value shines so brightly that it eclipses everything else, he knows he cannot live without it. He knows he cannot replace it. He knows he cannot move forward until he returns to the source of that light. In every relationship, whether spoken or unspoken, there is always a balance of control. Sometimes one person holds more of it. By being the one who dictates the rhythm, sets the pace, decides when to talk, when to argue, when to pull closer, and when to push away. And often, without realizing it, he believed he was in control. He believed he could walk away, ignore your emotions, and assume you would always still be there. But silence changes everything. Silence flips the power dynamic in a way that no words ever could. Because the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop trying to be heard, control silently moves back into your hands. Think about it. Before, he was the one deciding when to answer your calls or when to delay. He was the one choosing when to engage or when to pull back. But now it is you who decides. By choosing silence, you decide when communication stops. You decide how long it lasts. You decide the distance. And he has no choice but to sit in it. At first, he may pretend it doesn't bother him. He may try to act unaffected. But deep down, the lack of response gnaws at him, because silence takes away his ability to control the conversation. He cannot manipulate silence. He cannot argue with silence. He cannot twist silence into his favor. Silence is neutral, yet it screams the loudest message: you no longer hold the power over me. And that's where the shift happens. Control begins to slide back into your grasp. Not because you demanded it, not because you fought for it, but because you took away the one thing he relied on: your constant availability. Without realizing it, your silence turns into strength, and his pride turns into weakness. He finds himself waiting for you to reply, waiting for you to reach out, waiting for you to break the stillness, but you don't. And the longer you don't, the stronger your position becomes. Slowly, the roles reverse. Now he is the one second guessing. Now he is the one replaying conversations in his head. Now he is the one wondering if you'll ever respond again. And this shift is powerful because it does more than just make him miss you. It makes him respect you. Respect is born when he realizes he no longer controls the outcome. Respect is born when he sees you are not desperate for his presence. Respect is born when your silence commands his attention in a way your words never could. Control is no longer his. He cannot decide how this ends, you do. He cannot predict when this silence will break, you can. He cannot force the outcome, because you have already shown him that you are stronger without him than he is without you. And when he finally feels the weight of this shift, when he recognizes that the power he once took for granted is no longer in his possession, desperation begins to rise, and desperation always drives him back to the source he thought he controlled, but never truly did. Nothing shakes a man more than the thought of being replaced. At first, he may convince himself that you will wait. He may lean on the belief that you are too attached, too invested, too loyal to ever move on. That belief gives him a false sense of security, but silence is dangerous because it cracks that illusion. When you are silent, he no longer knows what you're thinking. He no longer has the certainty that you are still waiting. He no longer hears the reassurance of your voice, the softness of your words, or the warmth of your presence. And when certainty disappears, insecurity creeps in. That's when fear begins to whisper, what if she's not waiting anymore? What if someone else is giving her the attention I ignored? What if someone else sees her worth while I was blind to it? That fear is brutal, because it forces him to confront the very thing his pride doesn't want to admit. That you are valuable, that you are desirable, and that any man would be lucky to have what he took for granted. And the silence amplifies this fear because silence creates mystery. Silence makes him imagine scenarios that may not even exist. Silence magnifies his paranoia until the thought of replacement becomes unbearable. He starts noticing things he never did before. If you post a picture, he overanalyzes it. If you smile, he wonders who made you smile. If you look radiant, he wonders who you dressed up for. He begins to search for signs. Signs of another man stepping into the space he so carelessly abandoned. And every small detail becomes fuel for his fear, and here's the truth. Fear of replacement cuts deeper than regret. Regret is about what he lost, fear is about what someone else might gain. And that fear burns him inside because it means he might have to watch another man enjoy the love, loyalty, and devotion he once had all to himself. This is why silence is so powerful. It doesn't just remind him of you, it makes him aware of the competition. It makes him feel that his position is no longer secure. It makes him realize that you are not bound to him, that you have the power to choose someone better, someone who sees your worth without hesitation. And once this fear takes hold, it doesn't let go. It grows stronger with every unanswered call, every unopened message, every day that passes without your presence. His imagination becomes his enemy, and it tortures him with the thought of you moving forward while he remains stuck in the past. That fear begins to override his pride. It weakens his ego. It pushes him closer to the one thing he swore he would never do: reach out, beg, and fight to regain the place he once thought was guaranteed. Because now, nothing feels guaranteed anymore. And in his desperation to reclaim his spot, he realizes there's only one way to stop the fear, one way to silence the torment, one way to ensure that no one else takes what was once his. There is something primal, something deeply wired into the nature of a man, the instinct to chase what he cannot easily have. The harder something is to attain, the more his mind convinces him it is worth the pursuit. And nothing awakens that instinct more than silence. At first, he may have believed you would always be there. He may have thought you were predictable, that your love was guaranteed, that your patience had no limits. But the silence breaks that illusion. Suddenly, the certainty he leaned on is gone. Suddenly, the attention he took for granted has disappeared. Suddenly, the presence he assumed was permanent feels like a memory slipping through his fingers. And when a man feels that something valuable is slipping away, the hunter inside of him stirs. The chase begins to call him. Your silence makes him restless. It makes him wonder where you are, what you are doing, who you are with. It leaves him in suspense, and suspense is the fuel that ignites pursuit. Because now you are no longer predictable. You are no longer the one waiting. You have become the unknown, the mystery, the challenge. And mystery always ignites desire. Think about it. Before, he had all the comfort of knowing you were there whenever he wanted you. But silence strips that away. Silence makes him feel like he has lost access to something he once owned, and that feeling of loss flips a switch in his mind. He no longer feels in control. He no longer feels secure. Instead, he feels urgency. Urgency to act before it's too late. And that urgency is powerful. It drives him to check your social media, to ask about you, to replay conversations, to stalk the places you once went together. It makes him restless, unsettled, unable to focus. Why? Because the desire to chase is not calm. It is obsessive, it is consuming, it is relentless. And the more you remain silent, the more the chase intensifies. Because every unanswered message feels like rejection. Every ignored call feels like a wall he cannot climb, and men are drawn to challenges. They are pulled toward what resists them, not what submits to them. By holding your silence, you have transformed yourself from the one who waits to the one who must be pursued. And here is the truth. The desire to chase is not about ego anymore. It becomes about survival. He feels that if he doesn't act, if he doesn't move, if he doesn't run after you, then he will lose something irreplaceable forever. And that fear, mixed with desire, creates the perfect storm inside his heart. He begins to plot how to win you back. He starts to imagine what he must say, what he must do, how far he must go to convince you to let him in again, his pride broken, his arrogance shattered, his silence overpowered by yours. And as the fire of this chase consumes him, he realizes that there is only one path left. He must humble himself, he must swallow his ego, he must come running back, not walking, not strolling, but chasing you with every ounce of desperation he once tried to hide. There comes a breaking point. A moment when the silence, the guilt, the fear, and the chase all collide inside of him. At first, he thought he could resist. At first, he thought he could outlast your silence. But the truth, no man can outrun his own heart forever. No man can live with the gnawing torment of losing the one thing that gave him stability, love, and meaning. And so, slowly at first, then all at once, his pride begins to collapse. That armor he wore so proudly, the arrogance, the ego, the stubbornness, falls apart piece by piece under the weight of regret. He remembers every time you were patient. He replays every moment you chose love instead of anger. He relives the countless ways you stood by his side when no one else did. And suddenly, he realizes just how small he was to ever think he could afford to lose you. That realization breaks him. It forces him to see himself not as the man in control, but as the man who destroyed what he should have cherished most. And when that realization hits with full force, there is no more pretending. There is no more holding back. The silence becomes unbearable, the guilt suffocating, the fear consuming, and the desire overwhelming. He has no choice left but to return, and when he does, he is not the same man who left. He comes back humbled. He comes back stripped of the pride that once made him cold. He comes back with a softness in his voice, with desperation in his eyes, with trembling in his hands. Because now he is no longer fighting you. He is fighting for you. He doesn't come back with casual words. He doesn't come back with empty promises. He comes back begging, begging to be heard, begging to be forgiven, begging to be given just one more chance. And it is not weakness that drives him. It is the crushing realization that without you, he is incomplete. Every message he sends carries urgency. Every call he makes carries desperation. Every word he speaks carries the weight of regret. He will say the words he never thought he'd say. I was wrong. I need you. I cannot do this without you. Words he once resisted now flow from him effortlessly, because silence has humbled him more than arguments ever could. And here's the most powerful part. Your silence didn't just make him miss you, it reshaped him. It forced him to confront himself. It forced him to shed the ego that blinded him. It forced him to see the truth, that you are not just someone he wants, you are someone he cannot live without. So when he returns, it's not with the same arrogance he once carried. It is with sincerity, it is with humility, it is with a kind of raw honesty that only comes when a man has been broken by his own mistakes. He returns ready to fight for you, ready to prove himself, ready to rebuild what he destroyed. Because deep down he knows, silence did what words never could. It transformed you into the one he must chase, the one he must win, the one he must beg to stand beside again. And now everything in him is driven by one truth, that he would rather swallow his pride, bow his head, and plead for your forgiveness than spend another moment without the light that only you brought into his world. And so understand this truth. Silence is not weakness, it is power. It is the quiet strength that speaks louder than arguments, louder than tears, louder than pleas. It is the force that dismantles pride, awakens regret, stirs fear, ignites desire, and compels him to return humbled, broken, and desperate for your presence again. Because silence is not emptiness, it is a mirror that forces him to face what he lost, a mirror that shows him who he truly is without you, a mirror that reminds him that love is not guaranteed, loyalty is not infinite, and your value cannot be replaced. And when he finally breaks, when he comes running back, begging, pleading, humbled beyond recognition, you will know the power of restraint. You will know the power of holding back. You will know the power of letting silence do what words never could.